Uh, I could have done that behind the scenes, but I didn't. So first, I want to thank everyone for coming to this in-district toolkit training. Or in district training on how to have meetings within your district with your congressional members. My name is Gerard. I'm going to lead us through this training, and then we have other individuals from our Reconnecting Youth campaign and their partners who'll be also leading us through what it looks like to have an in district meeting with your congressional members. This training is being recorded, so you are going to be able to share this with anyone who wasn't able to attend today's training and is doing work on the ground and in their localities, and moving work forward for Opportunity Youth. Uh, That being said, here are our objectives for today. We're going to do a quick welcome. We're going to do a background about the campaign, the Reconnect the Youth campaign, what it's about. We're going to do some federal updates and some policy activities that we've been doing in the district that you can talk about within your local areas. Why are these in-district meetings important? We'll detail what's the purpose of them, why you should be doing them, and then we'll get through how you conduct your in-district training. After that, we'll talk about some materials that we'll have for you if you would like to do an in-district meeting, and then we'll close with any questions or comments or inquiries. Throughout this training, please feel free to put any comments or questions into the chat, and we will answer them as we move through this training. That being said, we'll start with what the Reconnecting Youth campaign is. It was launched in 2017. It's an advocacy campaign that is focused on making sure that elected officials ensure that youth and young adults or opportunity youth who are not connected to education in the workforce are prioritized and budgeted in decisions that Congress makes. We want to make sure there's equitable access to education, employment, and service pathways that lead to intergenerational economic mobility for youth, young adults, and their families. We'll make sure that all of these links get put into the chat where you can figure out more about the campaign and also sign up to get alerts from our LinkedIn because we just started a LinkedIn. These are just a list of programs that we have advocated for in the past and are still helping to move forward. We have Job Corps, Youth Build, the Service Corps, National Guard Challenge, Rio, AmeriCorps, Adult Secondary Education, Chafee, and WeOA. That being said, here is a list of our policy agendas or policy priorities that we're calling them now. Our priorities include one, WIOA, so the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. We want to make sure that that is updated, improved, and passed. WIOA is the long-standing legislation that helps to provide funding for opportunity youth programming in states and localities through education and workforce. Overall, our priority is to reconnect at least 1 million opportunity youth and provide them pathways to education and to workforce. So we are consistently asking them to provide robust funding or at least 20% of an increase above the funding for the last fiscal year for opportunity youth funding and WIOA. Outside of that, we want to make sure that federal programs are improved. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as the presentation goes along, but making sure that these programs are providing wraparound services and increasing the outcomes of opportunity youth or youth who are disconnected and need to stay in these programs a little bit longer. That being said, I'm going to pass it over to Nathan, who will talk about some of the activities that we've done and some updates that we have at the federal level.
Thanks, Gerard. Hi, everyone. Nathan Hoare with the National Youth Employment Coalition. We are in the Reconnecting Youth campaign with Gerard, Danielle, Megan, and Let's call and others that you can see on the website. So I think there are a few things we just wanted to share with you. So going into these conversations with your elected officials or their staff in district, um, you're aware of the most up-to-date information and developments at the federal level, like those that are related and relevant to your programs and the types of conversations you'll be having. The first big update is the recent reconciliation bill, or the One Big Beautiful Bill, that was recently passed and signed into law by President Trump. Um, this bill affects the opportunity population in a number of ways, but there are three large ways that we here. The first is that this allows Pell Grants to be used for short-term credentialing programs. This has been priority of many workforce advocates for some time, because we know that a four-year college degree is maybe not what everyone may want to pursue, and Pell Grants can provide an opportunity to low-income individuals to access higher education or just post-secondary education credential opportunities. That said, there are some quality control concerns around this proposal that we hope to be able to influence in future rulemaking decisions by the Department of Labor. Folks have also probably seen in the news some of the cuts and work requirements to SNAP and Medicaid. What these changes will do are put in place work requirements to receive some of these programs, or to receive support from some of these programs. And we know that can harm people who need healthcare, need food, to remain in a training program. If they don't have access to those things, it's going to be very difficult for them to complete a training program. I will put in the chat after speaking on these things some resources that provide a lot more detail and context to these from one of the members of the National Schools Coalition. The next update is around appropriations. This is the annual federal funding mechanism the annual federal funding mechanism. Earlier this spring, the president proposed his budget. This is the first step in a long process between Congress and the administration on how much they want to fund every federal program. We saw in the president's budget that he and his administration have a strong desire to shrink the number of dollars going into workforce development programs. They actually propose to consolidate all workforce development programs into one block grant to the states. The programs that Gerard touched on earlier are most, if not all of those, would be subject to that consolidation. The reason why we have these specific funding streams is because they go to specific populations for a specific purpose, often to populations that may be marginalized by block grants. So we are now that the president has proposed his budget, we're waiting to see what the House of Representatives and the Senate will propose. We've heard rumblings that the Senate may release their proposal tomorrow. I'm not sure if that's still going to be the case. The House had previously been scheduled to propose their bill last week, and they postponed that until sometime in September. But our hope, and what we've heard from conversations with staff and legislative offices, is that the proposals from the House and Senate are not going to be the same as the president's, for the better. We'll obviously have to wait and see once these proposals come out, but this will be something that through the Reconnecting Youth campaign, through the forum, through whichever organizations you may be connected through that are for the Reconnecting Youth campaign, will be updated relatively quickly when we see these proposals. The next recent news development is that the House took a step to allow president to approve a step that Congress can then pass. It's kind of wonky. Essentially, the House took a first step in clawing back previously appropriated funds from the Congress. This is concerning because as a member of Congress, as an advocate, as a public citizen, you would hope that once Congress appropriates money to a certain thing, they're going to stick with that. And this is a demonstration of this Congress, using their authority and the president's authority um, to claw back previously appropriated funds. There are some very specific timelines that the Congress and the president have to meet in order to legally do this. I believe it's like 40 something days at this point. Um, so this will also be something we're closely watching, but it is going to be very, very relevant to the conversations you're having. The last thing that most folks, if you know the acronym WIOA, have probably been made aware of is that last Congress or last year, but the House and Senate almost passed a bill that would update the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. That bill is called the Stronger Workforce for America Act, and a number of Reconnecting Youth campaign partners supported that publicly or privately um, for a number of their own personal reasons, but broad theme being there were positive changes for the opportunity population, and that by authorizing or reauthorizing this law, Congress will be incentivized to continue investing in it. Because what we have seen in recent years is a leveling off of investments in these programs, which we know is not going to meet the need. Um, and so by reauthorizing this law, by updating it, reforming it, we believe Congress is then incentivized to put money into that newer system. So all of these things I'll put in the chat. I've seen Arlo. Thank you, Arlo, for dropping in some more resources and links in the chat. All of these we can provide more material on, so you feel informed and equipped going into conversations. I just wanted to give a high level update on where things kind of stand. The next thing I wanted to share that is a collaborative effort from the Reconnect Youth campaign, as is this, was a recent congressional briefing that we held, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, July 16th. That was feels like a life. This briefing allowed we were able to bring in folks from Utah, Nevada, young person, youth build program administrator, an employer, and then a senior person at a local workforce development board, all to share their different perspectives on why these programs are so important in connecting young people to school. In that briefing, we had attendance from about, I'd say, 40 staff members, congressional staff members, who were able to hear directly from folks on the ground in the field about how these programs work at the local level and why they're so important. We also had remarks from one of our Bipartisan Opportunity Youth Caucus members, Congressman Burgess Owens, who's at the top, who was able to open up the session for Jerron. The last thing I'll plug on this theme of engaging with our federal legislators is that, this training is to equip you for conversations with your members of Congress and or their district staff in the district. And if you don't have a relationship with your member of Congress, this can be a great way to start it. But as most of you know from any other context in life, like relationships require constant communication and constant engagement with one another. So another engagement opportunity that we have in November is our annual youth days. This will be the third time this event has happened. It's where NYC invites young people, practitioners, community leaders to come into DC, meet other leaders from across the country that are interested and invested in this work, then all together go up to the Capitol to speak directly with their members of I will drop in the chat the event page where you can see all of what the event will entail and the types of things you'll be able to take away from it. But just I want to thank Jerron for allowing me to plug this. And the early bird tickets end in August, but will be open through October. So I know that was a lot of federal updates and stuff. You're going to see a bunch of chat messages from me in just a sec with everything I said I put in there. Yeah, if there aren't any questions, I'll turn it to Jerron.
Yes, and any time we get a chance to make sure that people can come in the district and talk to their members. It is an exciting thing for me, so we'll always share. Before we get into some of the wonkiness of an in-district meeting, does anyone have any questions for Nathan or our team around what's happening at the federal level? If something comes to you later, feel free to put it in the chat. I wake up with a headache, listen to podcasts, and read my federal updates, and I leave with a headache. So I can understand if it's going to take a minute. So feel free to put it in the chat. If you have any questions about appropriations or what's happening with Opportunity Youth. Outside of that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues Megan and Danielle, who will be talking about why we should be doing in district meetings in the first place.
Thank you, Gerard. I'll kick Megan and I
And please next slide me.
What'd you say? Next slide.
Yeah.
The power I feel. No, just joking. Hi, everybody. I am Danielle Owen, Director of Government Relations with the CORE Network, or the National Association of Service and Conservation Corps. And I'll hand it over to my colleague Megan to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Shea, Government Relations Manager, also with the CORE Network. So today we're talking about why in-district meetings. In-district meetings can have the most impact. You're in your community, you're in your shared community, and you're talking about what you do and how it impacts that community. So could you go to the next slide, please? So why meet with the congressional office? These congressional meetings are our chance to highlight the importance of funding the programs and policies that we advocate for to gain support from members of Congress. So you want to do your advocacy in DC, but you also want to show at home how the programs you're advocating for are having an impact. I'm inviting your federal elected officials and their staff to come visit your program, or going to visit their state or district office is one of the many really valuable ways to educate them on the impact of your program. Our goal with this is to provide each member of Congress with a greater understanding of the Reconnecting Youth campaign, and to have their support in investing in federal funding for Opportunity Youth programs with the fiscal year 2026 appropriations process. Next slide, please. In-district meetings really are a bit of an overlooked asset. I think when you think federal advocacy, a lot of people picture going to the Hill, which is a really great resource. But members of Congress and senators usually have at least two district offices that you can also go visit. And obviously they should come to your program as well, but sharing your story in your shared community and demonstrating how your program positively impacts that community is incredibly powerful. This can help create a deeper relationship with your federal elected official. And forming these relationships with their staff or the actual member or senator is relatively easy once you create that relationship and maintain it by updating them on graduations your program is having, or just sharing press releases. And over time you may even become a go-to source for insight into how a particular piece of legislation would impact Opportunity Youth. And the kit that we're going to share is going to give you the tools and information to create a working partnership with your members of Congress and their district staff. I'll turn it over to Danielle.
Thank you, Megan. So I'm going to talk just a moment about how a congressional office is structured. So just a bit about me. I worked in the U.S. House of Representatives for 14 years, all with the same member, and I worked in the DC office. So Megan touched on it a bit. Each senator and each member of Congress has an office that's located in Washington, D.C. So that's their D.C. office. Senators definitely have offices back in the state that they represent. They'll have numerous offices throughout the state. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives, they tend to have several. We had 3, for example, in North Carolina. Some have a smaller district and they might just have 1 district staff, but they all do have staff back in the state, back in that district that they represent in the state. But you'll see most offices, congressional offices, are kind of their own island on how they structure themselves. But for the House, they can only have a max of 18 staff. and they divvy them up amongst their offices. The Senate tends to have a little bit more staff, maybe about 60 that they divvy up. But they're all going to have a chief of staff in the district, in the DC office, communications staff, a scheduler, legislative staff that are doing the policy work, a staff assistant. Down in the district, you're going to have a district director that's like the equivalent of the DC chief of staff. They also have folks that do casework down there. So think about when you need help getting your passport, or if you need help getting your Social Security benefits. That's the staff that you're working with back in the state. They also have a staff assistant. So all working for the same member, but doing different jobs. We can go to the next slide. So like Megan was talking about, we're always talking about meeting with our members of Congress, our senators, and we immediately think about the DC staff. Don't overlook that district staff. They are as important as the DC staff. And if anything, they've got their fingers on the pulse of what's important back in the state and what's important in the district. I've worked in an office that was from North Carolina. It was fairly easy to get to DC to meet with the congressman. It was a 6-hour drive. You might be from Alaska. You might be from Hawaii. It is not easy to get to DC, right? So meeting with that local staff is important. They know what's happening in the district. They know what the impacts on funding are having in the district. They will know what policy that you are working on DC, how it's affecting the district. And the district staff and the DC staff talk to each other. So it's just really important to have those meetings in the district, have them come to your organization and actually meet you, see what you're doing in the district. And so when the boss is back in DC working on legislation, working on policy, it's not just numbers or letters on a piece of paper. They will actually see a human being that they are impacting, and they will have met with you. And like Megan was talking about, we had specific organizations back in the district, back in Charlotte, North Carolina. There was one I haven't worked on the Hill since 2014, and I still remember this organization, Diane Baker. She would come meet with us to talk about breast cancer research, or we would meet with her in the district to talk about breast cancer research. So when it came to be appropriations time, we would reach out to her and her organization about funding for that research. So it's important. These are important meetings. Don't let yourself think that the district staff are not important just because they're not in a big fancy office in DC. So we can go to the next slide. And I think it's back to Megan. Wait, no, it's me. I can't even remember who's doing what. Sorry, y'all. So yeah, we're going to talk a bit. Well, I did this. I got ahead of myself about how important these meetings are back in the district. I think you tend to find, we've all watched West Wing, right? We've watched all the movies and we think it's all the business is done up here in DC. It's not. You've elected these people to represent you and your concerns, and they need to hear from you and they need to hear about it locally. And don't forget, there are certain times of the year where they are back in the district for a long time. So we're coming into August recess. I was always looking for stuff for my boss to do during that 4 weeks. So that was always very important. That was when we would get him out into the community and he would hold these in-district meetings, these in-district site visits. So you need to meet with them so that they will know what you do and what you understand. So if, gracious forbid, we're dealing with AmeriCorps right now and them trying to cut funding for AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps is on the plate, it's going to get eaten unless we get out there and let them know how this is impacting them. So Megan and I have been strongly encouraging our membership to hold these site visits in August, have them come out and meet with them so that, again, they see the face of that young adult that these programs are impacting, and it's not just a number or a word on a piece of paper. It's that person, that human being that is being impacted. I'm turning it back to you now, Megan, I believe.
I think that is the last slide for
Yeah,
this.
I think it
Oh,
goes to me. I think it goes to me.
I got going, y'all. I got on my soapbox. Let me step down off it. Sorry.
So we're gonna get into. And feel free to chime in throughout this time. I think that you all have a steep knowledge of what it looks like to do in district meeting. So we would love for you to chime in at all parts as we go into how do you get the meeting and what does securing the meeting look like. The first thing that we want you all to do is to find your elected officials. Throughout the years, the websites have changed, updated, so that they make it easier or harder for you to figure out who your member of Congress is. Arlo's going to be putting into the chat, and we'll make sure that you have these links with you, and the one pagers and in the recap so that you'll be able to find who your member is for the House and for the Senate. So understanding who your member is extremely important when it comes to inviting your member to your district, your program, and to the work that you're doing within your community. So the first way is through the USA Gov elected officials. Um, we have the House of Representatives. Um, website that is here. It's a little bit harder to find, so we're trying to descript it as much as possible through photos. It was a lot easier before this administration. It's changed a lot, especially if you go to the Senate side, and what it looks like to even find who your person is. So just make sure you know who your members are, and how to contact or who to contact for your state and your locality. I just gave an example of who my members are. I'm from PG County, in Maryland. So I have Senator Alsa Brooks, who was our county executive actually for a while, and Chris Van Hollen, and then Glenn Ivy as my house rep. In the toolkit that you'll get after this training, we'll make sure that we send it out. You'll get examples of ways that you can message your member of Congress. Um, uh, what's the words I'm trying to say? As a way to remind you all, we are making sure that we focus on Opportunity Youth programming and funding for Opportunity Youth programming, or programs that help reconnect youth to education and the workforce. So a lot of the language that we use is based around how can we make sure that we reconnect at least 1 million Opportunity Youth. So we give you sample language to use and a lot of the templates that you'll see in the toolkit that we'll provide after this. If you can see on the left, that's just an example or a sample of language that you can use to email your member of Congress. It talks about the Reconnect Youth campaign, why it's important to meet, what programs you have, who Opportunity Youth are. We want to make sure that during this Congress that we really amplify Opportunity Youth. What is Opportunity Youth? Why Opportunity Youth? Sharing Opportunity Youth. We want to make sure that Opportunity Youth is a household name that people are saying, or a statement that people are a term that people are saying regularly. That's our goal. So, who are Opportunity Youth? Why Opportunity Youth? What program is helping Opportunity Youth? Why this is important? And then giving them the data. So, if you go to Arlo, if you can put it in the chat, Reconnecting Youth Campaign .org, we have get the data, and you'll be able to see how many young people are disconnected within your state and within your district. You can add those numbers, that information. You can also go to Measure of America, which provides us with that data. On the right, you'll see Joanne Ponyo, who is a pioneer for this campaign, and her story and how she was able to write a letter to her member of Congress. So again, in the toolkit, you'll get the sample letter. On the right, you'll see examples of how you can personalize it. why is this important? Why should they think through this, or why should they want to visit you or your program? We had an individual from Alaska who um, did a lot of work at I want to say it's the Covenant House. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But being a foster youth and helping people who were experiencing houselessness or homelessness, and wanting Senator Murkowski to invest more in that, and why she should visit the site and why she should see more of what's going on within that area. And we were finally able to get increased funding for that program, only because of the young person saying, "Hey, this is something you should check out," and why Indigenous individuals in this area are experiencing homelessness or houselessness. Um, and why Opportunity Youth is a population you should really be considering as you think through your appropriations or your state funding. Before we get into having the meeting, are there any questions about what it looks like to contact your member or figure out who your member is? I can openly say that if you would like, I'll put my email address, Arlo's email address, and I'm sure Danielle, Nathan, and Megan, they'll put their email address in the chat. If you want to figure out who to contact in the district, we can figure that out for you and make sure that you can contact them directly. So if you are having a program, an event, something that's happening on the ground, and you want your member to come to it, you're not sure what it looks like, why they should come to it, how to craft that email. We have someone who's doing the backpack drive, which education is important, and why shouldn't a member be in the at that program and helping them craft what that email looks like and meeting with them. Our team is able to do that, and we have all of our programs who are more than happy to help you figure out who's in district, how you craft that letter, and what the meeting can look like. Moving forward, we'll talk about what it looks like to have this meeting. So first we talk about Roar. We already gave you the tools that you need to do the research. So again, if you go to the reconnectingyouthcampaign.org, you'll be able to find resources and tools on how many young people are disconnected from school and work in their state and in their district. We also have partners who have tons of information around youth disconnection, and why these programs to reconnecting them are important. So feel free to look at our website on all of our partners and what they do and why these programs are important. And then the outreach, you make sure that you have contacted them, you send them the email, even with or without our help. And now it's time to do that advocacy portion. So going in there and talking to them about what the issues are, why the issues are important, and then building that relationship throughout the years. I know a lot of us have about a year and a half until some new votes in our districts. So what does it mean to keep those members engaged in the work that we're doing and making sure that they understand how important our programs and these young people are? What your role is. I think what a lot of young people, programs, and practitioners forget when it comes to talking to members of Congress is that they work for you. They are here to make your lives better. They are here to make sure that your communities are better, that these programs are working for you, that the money that is invested into these programs are amplified and producing major outcomes. That being said, young people are a living, breathing testament of what these programs do. Practitioners are a living, breathing testament of how these programs work and the stories that they get from these young people and why they work. And then overall, these programs and organizations just showcase and amplify and highlight why we need to continue and fund this work. So your job in this meeting is to make sure that these programs continue to get funded, and you as a young person continues to mobilize and advocate for these funding streams and these issues. A lot of individuals need to learn what opportunity youth means. What does it mean to be disconnected from work or education? I was just in a meeting last week where I'm not gonna say who the senator is. Was just like, well, why don't you just go to McDonald's? And that's not a sustainable career for everyone. And I think that sometimes it gets lost on individuals why these programs give training, development, how these apprenticeships are able to provide resources, jobs, um, um, and information and education that doesn't just happen at a regular McDonald's or Wendy's. How these are transferable skills that you can learn and trade and move to other areas, and why it's necessary to continue to fund these programs, and why just saying I don't want to work at a liquor store is that's not my destiny is important to tell your member of Congress. It wasn't anyone in this picture. It wasn't Representative Brown. I don't want to besmirchify her name. Shout out to Don King. It was not Chantel Brown. Um, the goals of the meeting. As we said throughout this, we want to make sure that we highlight the importance of funding programs and policies that help reconnect opportunity youth. So we always want to amplify the importance of opportunity youth programming, how important opportunity youth are to this economy, the return on investment for opportunity youth. We always want to make sure that we ask for an increase or at least level funding for workforce education and education programs that help to reconnect opportunity youth. I think Nathan hit on this a little bit when he gave the federal updates, but we're looking at some scary times right now for what programming for opportunity youth or funding for education and workforce can look like. There is the new, I feel like I'm going to be getting this wrong, so someone help me. The MASA program, the MASA proposal. What does the MASA
Make
stand for?
America Skilled Again program.
Yeah, and that's block funding for
Mhm.
programs. And it kind of consolidates all of these different programs that we have or federal funding streams that we have.
Yep.
And it's not the smartest thing to do because the pockets are different, the funding is different, the way we serve the communities are different. For example, WIOA carves out funding for opportunity youth, and we want to make sure that localities have those carve outs for this population. So in the president's budget, it wouldn't be smart for us to consolidate a lot of these programs. And what does that look like if we give that funding to the states? And let's highlight and showcase the impact that these programs are doing to um, help opportunity youth in their communities. You also want to share your lived experience. Um, Myself, Danielle, Megan, Arlo, we all go to the Hill regularly, and one of the questions that we ask is, how can we be of service to you as an office and be a resource? And they tell us we need more stories. What's happening on the ground? We want to know what these people are going through, why they're going through it. We can't just hear from you. What is happening? And this is your chance to share maybe how you became an opportunity youth or why this program is important to your community and how it's helped people get reconnected to education, workforce, their trade programs. So they want to know the stories of the individuals within the community. And then also a way to just amplify what work is happening in the communities. At a young person from, I feel like I'm gonna say this wrong. Is it Pudica? Arlo, stop me and or correct me. Is it Pudica, Kentucky?
Paducah.
Paducah. There we go. Paducah, Kentucky. We have an opportunity youth who is in Paducah, Kentucky, who met with their member last week, and that representative was just so excited to see that a young person from this small town is actually engaged in advocacy work that's moving at the federal level and ask, can I come to something that you're doing at the local level? Only because I'm so shocked that anyone's coming out of Paducah. Hopefully I said that right. Paducah. So we they need your stories. They need to hear from you, your communities, and your organizations. And then also just building that personal relationship with members. I know we only have a few people on here right now, but as we continue to gear up what the Reconnecting Youth campaign looks like, what our advocacy structure looks like, what the campaign and mobilizing can do, we're going to be leaning on you in your communities to talk to your members when it's time to push the button on uh, appropriations or policies or bills. And how can you help us mobilize and move them towards making the right decision when it comes to voting in Congress? What's provided to you? So, say you have now decided you're going to do a meeting, you are excited, you emailed, you got a response, the district said, "We are coming." Um, or we want you to come down to our district office. What you got? You can email me, Nathan, Danielle, Arlo, anyone on this call, and we'll provide you with the information that you need. So if you go to the reconnectingyouthcampaign.com, you'll be sorry, .org, you'll be able to download our one pager, our state and district one pager, and our RYC one pager. But then it's up to you to figure out what other aspects do you need. As you can see here, I uploaded our forum one pager. You're probably not a part of the forum because we don't have members. But if your Boys and Girls Club, if your youth build, if your core has a one pager on work that you're doing within your locality, programs that you want to highlight, try to put that in the PDF form. If you need help, we give TA here at the forum in helping you to change that into a PDF and being able to send that to the member or the staffer. That way they know why it's important, who these members are, who these young people are who are disconnected, what the return on investment is if they provide more money to your state. Also, holistically, we talk about all of the members that we have. So programs across the nation, or I guess the world, if we think about Youth Build Global, across the world who are working on issues that affect opportunity youth and how they can invest in it. And then also your program, why your program is important, what things your program deals with, what aspects your program helps with in your locality. So you'll have all of those. So just feel free to email me. I'm gonna put my email in the chat right now. And then if you're watching this on the replay, you'll have that in the description. Am I forgetting anything, Danielle or Megan? Because I know you all do these regularly. Anything else they should think about having or bringing when they have in district meetings?
I think, Megan, one thing that Megan always has us do before we do these meetings is to look at the senator's website. It'll have their priorities on there, more than likely, what issues they believe in. You'll see how they phrase things. Like in our world, in the conservation world, climate change doesn't always float for some offices. So we will sometimes change how we speak about something. But still be talking about climate change. We're just talking about it in a different way. So I think just doing a bit of research and kind of looking at the member of the senator's priorities, the recent press releases, will give you kind of an idea of where the staff are on issues. Yeah. And I will say from my years on the Hill, having these one pagers, I loved it. That I would oftentimes share them with the boss afterwards if he wasn't in the meeting with me. And also it was something for me to be able to look back at after the fact. So please know that they are not tossing them or ignoring them. I actually use them. So yeah.
Tools from a staffer. Nathan, anything to add to that? Okay. I'm gonna quickly train you all on the meeting flow, and then I'm gonna let you all do your business. So we're gonna just quickly go through what introductions can look like, talking about the Reconnecting Youth campaign, why you are having this meeting in the first place, some solutions, which are investing into Opportunity Youth, sharing your stories, and then restating the ask. As we move through this, I'm gonna try my best to make sure that I talk about this through a young person's lens, the practitioner's lens, and then the programmatic lens. That way, every person can understand how they'll maneuver through these meetings in their districts. So the first one would be to introduce yourself when you go in and to meet with them. And this can be when they come to your program or if you just go to their office and have a meeting with them. You're introducing yourself, you're talking about what your organization is from, and then what part of the city or town you're from. You'll be surprised how many people who are like, "Oh my God, I am from Southside where the hot dogs are." They get really excited about stuff like that. And as someone who lives in the district here in DC, I have to bring people back because then we start talking about cotton candy made from a specific place. And I'm like, that's not what we were supposed to be getting. That's not what we are supposed to be talking about. But people they relate to that, members relate to that, staffers relate to that, especially staffers in the district. And then you talk about the reason that you're having the meeting with them in general, which is to reconnect Opportunity Youth. Who Opportunity Youth are, why we have Opportunity Youth, and how they can help with reconnecting them. So a little bit into that already, talking about the Reconnecting Youth campaign, how we're trying to reconnect at least 1 million Opportunity Youth. We're trying to increase federal funding or appropriations for programs that reconnect Opportunity Youth. If there are certain policies that you are considering talking about, please feel free to send it to me and put my email into the chat. Um, it's not that we're opposing policies, we're appropriations campaign. So we want to make sure that we understand what the policy is that you want to propose, and if we're in support. And we would hate for you to say we're here for the Reconnect Youth campaign, and we're talking about guardrails policy and how we need more of those. So we would just love to see what the policy is before you start talking and how we can correlate or if it correlates. Um, you explain to them who Opportunity Youth are. A lot of people look at the term as disconnected youth, um, disenfranchised youth, or at risk youth. They still use those terms. I had meetings all last week, and people still use those terms. And we want to change their language. These young people have opportunity to do great things and to live impeccable lives and being tax-paying citizens of the society. So we want to make sure that we amplify and highlight that. So if they have never heard of the term opportunity youth, we want to amplify and make sure that they understand what that means and why they are opportunity youth. Then we talk about the reasons for the meeting. For our upcoming meetings this August, it's going to be tricky. I'm going to figure out the best way to say this. And I guess Danielle or Nathan, you can chime in and help me. We're operating with 2 fiscal years uh, right now. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we focus on fiscal year 2026 appropriations and making sure that Congress increases appropriations or at least holds level funds appropriations for programs that reconnect opportunity youth. And we want to make sure that they robustly funded or at least level funded. We are also in CRs for fiscal year 2025 and trying to figure out what those numbers look like. I don't think there'll be any increases. Right now, a lot of organizations haven't gotten funding. Programs haven't gotten funding on the ground. Um, so talking about that would be important if your program, your org has been affected by any withholdings of federal funds and funds that have been approved and should have gone out. Making sure that your member and the staffer knows how necessary it is for this funding in your localities and what it's doing to opportunity youth or young people is truly important. But for the larger aspect, we are asking that you focus on making sure that we talk about fiscal year 2026, trying to get these appropriations increased, trying to make sure that these programs stay. And if they are concerned about whether or not they should increase funding for it, talking about improvements that we can make to it. So, not eliminating any programs, how can we focus on improving these programs in different aspects? Talk to them about wraparound services, which means including what does transportation look like, what does housing look like for a lot of these programs, but overall, making sure that opportunity youth are reconnected to education and workforce, and the programs that assist them are robustly funded or level funded, and then also have the support they need to continue to provide that service past the year. I feel like I just threw a lot at you, Nathan or Danielle. Any things that I didn't say or you want to highlight or amplify?
Yeah, I think you got it. I mean, I'll say over it's a lot. There's a lot going on. Gerard was referring to the rescission, the impoundment of fiscal year 2025 funds. So Congress appropriated funding that the executive branch, the Trump administration, is not releasing. So that's a bit of a battle that some of us are fighting. And then you've got regular order appropriations, fiscal year 26, that we're trying to at least get flat funding for. So I know over in the core world, at the core network, we've kind of been telling our membership to prioritize what's most important to you. If you're in that group of folks that has FY25 funds that that the Office of Management and Budget is sitting on and not releasing, that's probably your priority right now. And then if it's not, then you probably are focusing on FY26. It's kind of a what is it they say on planes? You got to put your mask on
Oxygen
first,
mask,
right?
yeah.
So it's kind of triaging, figuring out what's most important for each other. But it's funding overall. We need this funding. So yeah.
And I think a point I would just reiterate that I know has been made is ultimately, like, you're the experts on what is happening in your program, what young people in your community are facing, what you're experiencing. You don't have to be an expert on every single federal development that's happening. Um, so you can always speak to that because that is true, it's valid, and it's a perspective that legislators and staff don't get to hear always. So want to underscore the point with all these fiscal years and rescissions and appropriations, like, yes, the money is important. Speak to why your programs are necessary in the community and the benefits they provide employers, young people, community as a whole. And that's how you can ground the requests that you're making.
Thank you both. I think they both just really got at that. The solution, we need more money and we want to make sure that these programs continue. So making sure that they federally fund these programs, increase funding or at least level fund it. Right now, we want to make sure that they at least continue these programs to the best of their abilities and provide the funding to the state so that they can do the work on the ground. Here are some of the evidence-based programs that we advocate for. Overall, the funding is needed in order to run these programs, and your member needs to know when it comes to appropriations, make sure the money goes to these programs. Sharing the story. It is extremely important to have a young person there with you so that they can see who these young people are. I think sometimes there is a disconnect of understanding, yeah, I may be a practitioner or an advocate, and they can talk freely to me and say, well, why don't these young people just, again, work at the liquor store? It's extremely important to have a young person there to tell their experience and why that wouldn't work. I had a young person last week who talked about a paper mill, and I don't, I'm not from the state, but apparently the paper mill is a really big thing in the state, and it's extremely important in the trade programs that help those families and young people get to the paper mill and get that experience, and then everyone works at the paper mill. And there's an easier way to get a trade into a trade program to learn different skills to get to the paper mill, they'll take it. Because everyone loves the paper mill. That senator loved the paper mill, apparently, and the programs that connected them to it. And they had to learn through conversations that these trade programs that have been offered to us actually don't transfer to the paper mill, and we're having a harder time now working at the paper mill. My whole family's worked at the paper mill. Now I can't work at the paper mill because I took all these classes from a training program that said it was going to transfer to this credit in college, and it didn't. And now the staffer and the member are saying, well, let's go down to the program and see what's happening, because I we had no idea. We've been advocating for this. It's important to share what's happening on the ground, why this stuff is not working, or why it is working, and how they can change it. um they can't change what they don't know. And your stories matter. So from a practitioner standpoint, seeing what these young people are going through, seeing other aspects that are needed. I'm going to highlight the NYEC conference that we went to earlier this year, where I was at in one of the meetings where a lot of the practitioners are saying transportation is a big issue. People want these programs, but they can't get to them. And how do we make sure that members are that funding is integrated into the program where we can give them breast transfers or transportation supports? Um, all of these stories are important. So, as a young person who needs this program and understands the benefit of it, that's important to share. As a practitioner who knows I'm missing out on young people, or we have to kick them out, or we can't work with them anymore because they have a hard time getting here and no one's helping me get them to this program, that's important to share. And why we need increased federal funding, because we can pay for transfers or bus transfers or taxis or cars or driver's license, which I thought was an innovative idea that a lot of organizations are doing now, getting these young people's driver's license. We can pay for that stuff if you increase these supports, and just overall programs and organizations who are saying these things work within our community, and reconnect them to education and to workforce. Your stories, your experiences matter, and it's important for them to hear and see that work on the ground, and hear that from you all and the experiences that you all are having. Also, and I want to make sure I raise that as well. Strategically sharing your stories. So young people who have been disconnected, making sure that they understand how to share their story, and they can always reach out to us at the Forum for Youth Investment on strategically sharing their stories. But what happened to them and why they aged out of foster care, or had issues with houselessness, or they were abandoned, or they dropped out of school, and what those problems were, because those are other areas that the members would also want to know about helping to fix and provide more funding or assistance and help with. Again, if we want to make sure that there are wraparound services for these young people outside of just education and workforce, they also are going to have to understand um, what's the root cause of these young people being disconnected in the first place. So strategically sharing your story is also something that's important, so that they know why young people are getting disconnected or displaced in the first place. Outside of that, just making the ask, making sure that we ask for robust funding, or at least level funding. For the programs that help to reconnect opportunity youth, we know that these programs change people's lives. They help to sustain them and their communities. And we want to make sure that for fiscal year 2026, they're thinking about programs like the core youth build, workforce innovation opportunity act funding, and the state and local workforce boards, when they think about how much money should go into these areas. And as they start to vote, they seen on the ground how much work is getting put into these programs, how it is working, and they can bring that back to DC, and vote adequately because they understand and know why we should be increasing or at least not cutting these federally funded programs. And then what we always ask is that you take a photo. Just to one, capture the moment for yourself. I put the one in the middle. She's not on here today, but it was a member who wasn't supposed to be there. But the vote ended early. So he came back to the office, and as she was leaving with the staffer, he walked in and she lost her mind. So I just for yourselves, take a photo, capture the moment, make sure that you are taking in all of these aspects, and then also showcasing and amplifying that in social media so that they remember that they said they were going to do something for Opportunity Youth. They remember that they said they were going to do something to increase appropriations, and so that they remember that when it's time to vote, they do the right thing. Like Nathan talked about earlier, we had a briefing, and Representative Owens talked way more than I thought he was going to talk, but I think that he understood also the importance of these programs. And it's important to make sure that you capture those moments, those times, and then also hold these individuals accountable when it comes to, isn't it you in this photo with me? Saying that you were going to do that. So always capture those moments, and feel free to share with us, or tag us, Reconnecting Youth Campaign on LinkedIn, or share it to me at info@reconnectingyouthcampaign.org or any of our national partners. That being said, that is the end of our full presentation. Before we get into questions from the individuals who are viewing, if you have any, please feel free to email me at the Gerard, Gerod, at forumfyi.org, or any of our national partners, and you'll be able to see that on the screen if you're watching this on a replay. And we are open to any questions or comments that you have, and ways to find the toolkit and ways to find your members. That being said,